evening, folks. I'd like to call the meeting of the Londonderry School Board to order. Will be held on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Londonderry High School, 295 Mammoth Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire, in the cafe. The meeting will also be broadcast on local cable access channel 21, as well as the district's YouTube channel. Could we all please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we all just stay standing for a moment, please, for a moment of silence? Please join me in a moment of silence as we honor and remember the victims of the recent shooting in Nashville. We send our thoughts and prayers to the families and loved ones of those affected by this tragic event. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll jump right into the consent agenda, and we have one retirement of Jeannie Zapla.
Jeannie has been employed by the Londonderry School District as a bookkeeper from 1998 to 2023. She has 25 years of tenure at the school district and has demonstrated a deep sense of loyalty here. She is a valued member of the business office, assisting in clean financial audits during her tenure. She went above and beyond time and time again. Whatever was needed in the business office, Jeannie was always willing to step up and help. Jeannie was often the person clerical staff at the schools would turn to, and she was always willing to share her knowledge of district operations. Jeannie is extremely organized, reliable, and computer literate. Her organizational skills allowed for a high level of accuracy in all of her work. Jeannie worked independently and was able to follow through to ensure that the job gets done with whatever it took. She is a seasoned veteran and knows what is needed to perform her job duties at the highest level. Jeannie will be sorely missed by all here in the business office. It is with heavy heart that we wish her well in her decision to relocate with her husband Chuck and her two fur babies, Spirit and Shiloh. Not only will we miss her strong work ethic and high level of work performance, we will miss her friendship. We all wish her well as she pursues her dream of endless hot and sunny days.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jeannie. Okay, on to 3.4 meetings. April 18th, 2023 will be a regular meeting in the LHS library at 7 p.m. On May 9th, 2023, regular meeting right here in the cafe at 7 p.m. And May 23rd, 2023, regular meeting, which will be in the band room that evening. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 4. Going to open up public comment, 3 to 5 minutes, please, and please direct all questions or comments to the chair, please, and I'll open it now.
Heather Carey, Pillsbury Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire. I first wanted to thank the Londonderry Police Department and SROs for all that they do, and I love that our kids, parents, community see them daily. I just think it's really important from our community because I've heard a lot from others that question that area, and I think we're really lucky. Mr. Chairman, I know there are many parents very passionate about their children and education, and this district has previously struggled a little bit with transparency, and I'm hoping that we can make public the list of the hiring committee, principal search committee. I know people had asked. I heard it wasn't released or kind of shared because it wasn't a board-appointed committee, but I think it's important for people to understand what the role of it is and who was on it, if possible.
Sure.
I would also like to recognize that in the past, I know we were lucky enough to hire from within, and Londonderry's had some great staff with our principal, assistant superintendent, and I just wanted to say that I speak for a lot of parents when we're excited about the possibility of recruiting from within again. I think that we have an extremely qualified candidate that kind of helps overcome the learning curve that would take place because she's in district, knows our town, knows our students, and is really respected for who she is and what she does. So I hope everyone can take that into account with Abby. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I'm here as a resident. I'm here as a mother, and I'm here as a state rep today. Along the lines of transparency, I would like to first offer 2 definitions to you to consider. First, safety, the condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury. The second definition, personal safety. In general, the sense of feeling secure from any sort of potential dangers. Now, if we cannot secure our own personal safety, then we must depend on someone else or something to do that for us. For example, when I worked in the hospital, elderly persons or who with cognitive impairment or weakness, alarms were put in their beds so that we were alerted if they tried to get out of bed for their safety. Or parents' responsibility to provide safety for their children at any age, perhaps in the form of a cell phone to call when hurt on the playground, or just a safe ride home. I believe these devices are allowed in the schools in Londonderry. Is that correct? Cell phones? Okay. That being said, I am extremely thankful and acknowledge that all that the district has done to provide education and safety for emergency situations. But when you have the police department recommend the very appropriate GPS device for a severely challenged student, for the student's safety and the parent's peace of mind, what right does the head of special education have to say that that cannot be used? And not get back with a resolution for that parent going on 2+ months. All the time, the student remains at risk. And then to have the head of this SAU not prioritize this. This is not only outrageous, but someone needs to be held accountable, and I hope you do that. This is a grievous injustice to the parents, to the children, and not addressing this safety issue. This is not the first time that concerns of wrongdoings have been brought forward by friends of family. When families have received no help by elevating to the appropriate channels. How many things do we not know about? How many things do we, as residents, do parents not know about? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Samus, South Elshire Road. I just wanted to piggyback off what Heather said. A while back, I came up here and talked about how to get on the committees. They had the superintendent committee, and it was going on, and nothing was announced about how to get on it. The guy followed me up, and he agreed with me. He said it seemed arbitrary how they picked him. The school board agreed. They said they were going to look into doing something. And then, before I know it, we're in another committee for a principal, and I didn't see any outreach, you know? I don't know why that was. And I heard it's one of the largest committees you've ever made, but nothing was mentioned here about putting your name in to be considered for it. And on that line, you talk about questions for these people, and you want to submit these questions, but let me tell you, I have a feeling that some of the questions we want to ask won't be asked, and only because of what I've seen. I've only been coming to these meetings for a little over a year, but let's see. I mean, you want things to be transparent. So first you talk about picking the meetings, and then I don't see any outreach. And then you talk about submitting questions instead of like having some type of bingo where people take numbers and then have these questions asked, because the last questions I saw when I watched it on TV, the school board, they're asking about kitchen appliances. And I mean, that's the last on my mind. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to, you know, have fun and keep it light, but things that are going on now are way more serious than kitchen appliances and whatnot. And I'd have a little bit more faith. And after every new election, you have some talking head comes out here, talks about bringing everybody together. Let's work together, you know, striving for new. We want to be number one. But then I see things just like the science class that I was the only one that opposed. And when you talked about voting for it, you talked about we're going to update the curriculum for the graduation studies. Hasn't been done since the 70s. It's that sleight of hand that gives people little faith. If you just said you were going to vote on the science class that night, I might have stood up, speak my mind again. But it's that distraction. It's dishonest. And that's why people hate politics, because of stuff like that. Yeah. It's things like that that you talk about building and coming together, but that doesn't build fences, that destroys fences. And if I could ask these upcoming principals some questions, I mean, I'll ask them now, because I know none of my questions would be picked. I mean, do you believe in God? Please define a woman for me. Do you know these names? Carl Schwab, Harari, Bill Gates. What do you know about them? Do you support safe spaces for women? Do you agree with a smoking age of 21? If you agree with that, so you must agree with that, any type of gender mutilation should be for an adult and not a child. These are issues that are going on in this country right now that gives me great concern, great concern. So it might seem, you know, extreme, but look at the news, look at what's going on. Do you know about BRICS? Do you know about the petrodollar? Do you know what's going on in this world? I'd love things to be normal, I really would. And I hope it does. And you guys keep a good balance of keeping things normal. You just business as usual. But do you know the name Matty DeGarry? Do you know the name Knox Zajac from Maine? These are things these people should know. And I know I won't have a chance to ask them on Thursday, so I'll ask them now. They can watch us, and hopefully they can answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close public comment. Thank you. And we'll move into our announcements and presentations, and we're going to bring up our Community Service Club, please. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Jagir. I'm an English teacher here at Londonderry High School.
And I'm Susan Wakeland. I'm a social studies teacher here at the high school.
Together, we advise Londonderry High School's Community Service Club. We'd like to thank you for giving us a few minutes this evening to share a little bit about our organization, but also to thank the entire school district as well as the town of Londonderry for the incredible support that we received during our most recent project. Here to talk with you about that tonight is our executive board. We have our president, Bella, our secretary, Alicia, our historian, Matt, our vice president, Susan, and our publicist, Rachel.
Hello. As board members from the Community Service Club, we are dedicated to give it back to our Londonderry community. In the past 2 years, we've raised over $3,000 for the ALS Association. We are currently volunteering at the New Hampshire Food Bank, babysitting at the Moose Hill PTA meetings, and participating in beautifying Londonderry. We are here to thank the Londonderry community for your generosity towards our recent service project. Continuing our club's mission of love, support, and dedication, we are always seeking ways to aid our Londonderry community.
This year, when Community Service Club learned of the need for essential items to help those in homeless shelters, we as a board decided that we wanted to help alleviate some of the strain that many homeless shelters are currently experiencing. For this effort, we partnered up with the New Hampshire Food Bank and reached out to the Londonderry School District. By holding our town-wide Drive to Fight Homelessness, we collected numerous essential items with the help of our generous community.
To organize this event, each school was assigned an essential item to collect. North School was in charge of collecting socks, South School tissues, Matthew Thornton wet wipes, Moose Hill toothbrushes and toothpaste, Londonderry Middle School deodorant, and Londonderry High School cereal bars, hand warmers, and Ziploc bags. Donation boxes were in central spots at each school, town hall, the district office, and Leach Library. We are very thankful for the generous donations from the Londonderry community.
Each bag was hand-assembled by our Community Service Club members and our teachers at LHS. Through this project, we were able to make 220 bags and donate them to the New Hampshire Food Bank to support men, women, and children in need. We donated the extra supplies collected from the drive to Stepping Stones, which is an organization that supports homeless teens in the greater Nashua area.
We would like to express our deepest gratitude to our town for making the Londonderry Fight Homelessness Drive a success and for creating such a positive impact on the communities around us. As long as there is a need, we would like to continue to support this cause and make this an annual event. This effort is a great way to bring our community together, and maybe in the coming years we can even add some friendly competition between the schools to spice things up. Thank you so much for your time. Are there any questions?
Any questions? No, not at this time.
If you would, I hope to take one more moment of your time and recognize our amazing senior officers. So we have Bella, who's been with our club for 3 years, and Alicia and Susan joined when they were just freshmen. Ms. Jaguar and I would like to thank them for their dedication to service and their commitment to this club. Our club has truly flourished under their leadership, and we will miss you so much. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Outstanding. Okay, we're moving on to 5.2. Mr. Dutton, Beyond School Enrichment Grant, please.
Good evening. I'll be brief, but I have some very exciting news to share. Over the past 2 summers, our teachers, staff, and administration have built a successful Summer Math Academy program at each of the elementary schools and our middle school for our students. This opportunity provides students with additional time to make sure that they have the foundational skills in math that they will need for the upcoming school year. Summer Math Academy is built around the following specific designs and goals, all while making it a fun experience for our students. The focus is on the most important math skills that students need to master before they go on to the next grade level. Small group settings maximizing support to each student's specific needs. Emphasis on hands-on activities and fun interactive math games to make sure students are engaged and motivated. This is set up by 2 weeks of instruction followed by 4 weeks of independent math work during the summer. This past winter, we applied for additional funding through grants. I'm excited to share the great news that we're able to secure roughly $220,000 in grant funding. This additional money will allow Summer Math Academy to continue for 2 more summers, this summer and next summer, for our students at each of our 4 schools. Preparations are currently underway for the summer, and invitations went out last week to families.
That's great news, Mr. Dutton. Dan, could you hit on that a little bit, what we've done over the past couple of years with the Math Academy?
Sure. If you look at it, a couple years ago, it was our initial response to some of the learning loss we saw in COVID. We saw an initial drop in math scores that first winter we were back. So we wanted to build in extra time for kids. It's just that simple. But we went about it a little bit differently. We made sure that math would be fun. Not that math is not fun on a normal day, but we had a big emphasis on that. We targeted it around parent and family schedules so that we were flexible with parents over the summer. And then over the last couple of years, I think what I've seen is we've better fine-tuned how we use a couple different adults in the room, and we've better fine-tuned kind of the work that kids do after that time. So what we're really doing is just making sure there's no summer loss, and we get some of those gains back. And I think it's a really good example of a competency-based model where I hope to be one day, where we set a really high bar and we provide the time for everyone to get there. And I think it's a great thing. Good job, Paul. We should give him a round of applause. $220,000. You know?
Thank you very much.
So the fact that we don't need to ask the Londonderry taxpayers for 2 more fiscal seasons to fund it is great. And I think down the road that might be something on the horizon. But thank you, Paul, for kind of securing 2 more years of it. It was a wonderful outcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Paul, very much. Great news. Thank you. All right, moving on to 5.3. We get the LMS here with the staff and some of the students that performed the Little Mermaid play. Please come on out.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Oh, there we go. All right. So we do have the LMS, Little Mermaids. We have staff, we have students, and we have some of who performed that evening. So I'm going to introduce you to Mrs. Jen Maurice, who is the theater director at Londonderry Middle School. I do want to thank, I see her right here, Mrs. Preston, who is one of our teachers who worked backstage with our crew, and also Mr. Toby Paul, who's back there, who also worked with our actors. And then I'll let Ms. Maurice talk all about the play. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, do I actually need the microphone? Probably. So, hi, as he said, I'm Jen Maurice. I teach at the middle school. I actually teach geography. Been there a very long time, even though I don't look it. 21 years now. This is year 21 for the show. And I am the director of the drama club. My assistant director is Mr. Paul, standing right here. Couldn't do it without him, thank goodness. Next to him is Miss Preston. She is our stage crew. He's the one who does all the sets, scenery, props, and whatnot. She's trying to duck behind and hide back there. Next to her is Miss Sovis. She's our choreographer. She does all most of the dancing for our lovely cast, so they look a lot better than when I do it. Right? Say yes. Yes. And we have a musical director as well who couldn't be with us tonight, Miss Morgan, who makes them sing, because that is the one part of drama that I cannot teach them to do. Right? Okay. The rest of it I can muddle through. So drama starts in October. We have auditions when the fall sports ends, and then we go all the way through to March, where we have our show this past weekend, right before spring sports starts, so that kids at the middle school level can do sports and drama if they want. They can participate in both things. They just can't do a winter sport and us at the same time. This year we put on The Little Mermaid. As you can see up there, that's one of our lovely posters that Miss Preston's group put together. Right there. Do you have another picture after that?
Sorry. There you go.
There we go. So you can see that's some of our cast and crew hanging out in front of our trifold flats that spin around so we can do 3 scenes at the same time. We do singing, dancing, and acting. We meet 3 times a week from November through all the way through till March. We are there long hours in March, doing practices all the time. We share the cafeteria with the cheerleaders through some of our things. So we're only in the caf 2 days a week, but we have another room that we share with the music department to do our singing and dancing, correct? Yes, our cast, this is part of our cast. This is not actually our full cast. We had 37 in our cast, and then we take another about 20 in crew. At some points, we had up to 30 in crew, I think, at some points, right, Ms. Preston? 32 was our highest in crew some days. There were 32 painting while we were on stage singing and dancing. So at some points, we had over 50 kids in our cafeteria working at the same time. So there was an awful lot of them running around with all of us there working. Sound, lighting, and all that lovely stuff comes together in the month of March and get it all done. And please don't call a snow day on one of our drama days. So whoever calls snow days, please don't do that on a drama day. I cry on those days, right, guys? We don't like snow days on drama days. So as you can see some more of our pictures from our cast, you can see all our costumes. We borrowed some of our costumes this year from the high school, because the high school did Little Mermaid a bunch of years back. And a lot of them we had made by some of our wonderful parents in the back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank God for them. We couldn't do it without our parents' help. They volunteered to sew, watch cast members, sell tickets, and everything else that they did. Because without them, we couldn't pull off the show that we do pull off. So, and we sold out Friday night. We had no seats available Friday night. And Saturday, both shows were practically sold out. We squeezed some people in, got everybody in who showed up. So, still tallying the money now. See some more of our pictures of our cast members here. Some of these guys haven't seen these pictures yet. They're looking at them going, wow. You can see some of these pictures. I might have some criers right now once they see some of these pictures. We had some crying at the end of the show. And for some of my cast members, this is the third year they've been with me. So it was a little sad. Thank you. Oh, is there any questions that we can answer for you?
Any questions?
And we are going to be working on some lighting and stuff improvements.
I just have a question. For how many of you, if you can raise your hand, was this your first drama play? Awesome. And do you plan on coming back and doing it next year? Awesome.
How many of you are going to be joining me next year? Yeah.
That's great.
They tend to repeat usually.
Awesome.
And I have no idea what we're doing next year. I'm going on record because they ask me that a lot.
All right, thank you very much. Don't go anywhere yet. I just want to say thank you to Danielle. I see her back there. She's the music director, I think, at the high school? At the high school. I just want to say thank you. She was over there on Saturday with us, I believe, warming our singers up. So thank you for that. We do have lots of, yeah, she's very good. We do have lots of parents involved in the theater production, so we want to say thank you to them. Lots of help with costumes. But I have to tell you something. So I've been involved with watching theater for many years, more so even before I got here. And I will say that the production of Little Mermaid was fantastic. It actually blew me away. Some of the singing in there and acting and performing was absolutely amazing, and you need to know that. Okay, it was really incredible. And what's really even more rewarding, that in middle school, theater plays a bigger role, because really it's all about getting up in front of people and performing, and that is really not easy to do. So it's really hats off to all of you. You did a fantastic job this year. We're very proud of the performance. Thank you to Ms. Maurice and all of our cast and crew for a really nice spring performance of our theater production. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight and being a part of our theater performance.
Thank you very much. Well done. I was able to see the show on Friday. It was spectacular. Great job by all. Thank you.
Great. Go back to
All right, moving on to 5.4, LHS principal finalist. Dan?
Sure, just to go over very quickly. So we're down to 3 finalists for the principal position. I've got a great committee. Right after I announced Mr. Parent moving up and changing positions, I offered it up to anyone on the high school staff if they want to join the committee. Normally what happens in a hiring committee, it's an administrative committee. So for example, if there's a math teacher opening at a school, what a principal will do, we'll pull together a group of math teachers to go find a new one. It's always a bigger deal with the principal job. So staff reached out to me, I reached out to some staff, and we had a good balance in the committee of all the different departments, some senior staff members, some newer staff members. Mr. Parent was great in helping find some parents that would to join the committee as well. And then I work with Mr. Parent and the APs to have students on the committee. I think, for the high school, it's entirely appropriate to have kids in the committee too. So over the last 6 weeks, we reviewed resumes, we had in-person interviews, and where we've landed is we have 3 really strong candidates. So the point of Thursday night is to really gather feedback from the community. So Mr. Benson will be first from 6:30 to 7. He'll actually be here all day Wednesday as well, meeting staff, meeting students, and that'll be a chance for the staff and students to give feedback as well. Mrs. Sloper, who we all know well, she'll be in the high school all day Thursday, talking about a new role for her. And she'll do the same thing again with the parents on Thursday night. And then Mr. Rick Barnes will be here all day Friday as well as Thursday night to do the same thing. So it'll be a half an hour for each. If there are any questions people want Scott Spelling to ask, there's a form to submit them. So what Jason and I are going to do is just kind of handle the logistics of the night and kind of run around and make sure everything goes well. And Mr. Spradling will kind of work with the candidates for half an hour each to ask those questions. And we'll go from there. But I think it's a good opportunity for everyone to meet our 3 finalists and then hopefully provide some feedback for the committee. And the committee will digest all the feedback from the parents, the community members, students, and staff, and then hopefully be able to make a recommendation at some point.
Dan, there was a bunch of questions asked. Will
Sure.
people be able to ask a question there that night if they attend, or does it have to be sent in ahead of time?
I don't know yet. I mean, I think for the last time I checked, there were about 5 or 6 questions that came in. What I told all the candidates is really think about, the first couple minutes are you're explaining to everyone, why are you the best person to be the next high school principal? They'll open up there. And then Mr. Spradling will go through the questions that have been submitted. And I think if there is more time, I think what Jason and I will do, have a little note card system where people can kind of turn in note cards, and we'll do our best to kind of get around the room. If only 5 people show up, it's very easy to ask those questions. If 150 people show up, it'll be a little bit harder.
Okay.
So I think, one of the reasons why we put the questions out there is to kind of gauge the size of the audience on Thursday night as well.
Okay. And then the decision will come back to the board.
Yep.
The board will make the final decision once the committee has done their process. You do this process for the community.
Yep.
And I know we've done, the only process that the board has been a part of was the superintendent. That's the only position we actually hire.
Yep.
Everything else is done internally through the district office, through buildings.
Yep.
And that's how we go. So there's a lot of questions that have come in to us
Sure.
regarding that, so I just kind of wanted to hit on those a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say that again. I know that it was kind of when the kids were leaving. So, there's 2 types of committees. There's committees of the board. A good example of that is the kindergarten committee. Last year, you guys made a motion. You started a committee. That's a public committee. The facilities committee was a public committee. The communications committee is a public committee. Anytime you go out and hire, it's going to be an administrative committee, so it's not a public committee. The superintendent search is obviously very different because it's the one employee of the school board. So normally a hiring committee is an administrative committee, which are things are done more internally. But I think we've done really good work as a committee. It's a big group. It's about 30 people, which means I get a ton of input from all over the building and from parents and students about what we're looking for. So I have a nice global look about what everyone's looking for in the next high school principal, and it's been invaluable to kind of have that.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Dan? All set. Thank you. All right, moving on to committee reports. We'll start with Andrew, please.
Oh, sorry.
The Student Council has been finalizing plans for several things. First, concessions have been chosen for the Kate Sherwood Walkathon. Second, the Spirit Weekdays were prepared for discussion and voting at a later time. Lastly, the next Executive Council meeting, fast approaching, has had its time and discussion topics selected, including the vote on which Spirit Days will be selected. There is also a Goffstown meeting for student board representatives happening on Saturday.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, school board liaisons, I'll start to my left. Everybody else is right. Kevin?
Thank you, Bob. All right, so I have a couple updates from the PTAs, and that's about it for this one. First, North School, we had our game night, dodgeball night over there this past week. I drew over 300 people, which is double the attendance from last year. And while extremely fun, it was very chaotic, and everyone had a good time, but we were thinking about switching it into a 2-night event based off of the massive numbers, which is a great thing, great problem to have. The Boosterthon is going on now, culminating on Wednesday the 12th with the Glow Run, which is a big PTA fundraiser. It gets all the kids involved in a bunch of activities throughout the week, culminating on that Glow Run they're going to be doing on the 12th. And planning for the Daughter Dance in May is ongoing right now, which is the yearly dance that the PTA runs. If anyone's interested, the next meeting is tomorrow, actually. From South School, gave out over 12,000 in grants. Teacher grants have all been delivered. Some classes chose field trips. There are a bunch of in-house programs and a lot of classroom supplies that were needed. And that is as a result of their fundraising that they've done over there. On the 14th, South School will be having their dance, their annual dance, the Small and Tall Dance will be taking place. They are currently also announcing winners for the daily cash fundraiser that they are running as a part of their yearly fundraising. And they are very proud that one of their students in the Friends program won the reflections for the area and is moving on to the state level competition. So that was very, very cool on their part. A lot of awesome entries there to choose from, and it was really cool to see someone move on. And finally, in non-PTA news from South, they put on the Peter Pan play last week, which was very well received, a big success. Everyone had a great time at it, and kids just did an amazing job over there. And one final note, I would like to say congratulations to Bob and to all the Londonderry High School Hall of Fame inductees whose ceremony I had the honor of attending this past Saturday. Great class that went in there, and they all deserve it immensely for all the achievements and community efforts that they've all participated in.
Thank you, Kevin. Amanda?
I don't have any new updates, but from the last Moose Hill update, I just wanted to kind of recap. The police car ride-along raffle tickets are going to be on sale through April 11th. And the Touch a Truck event will be on Saturday, May 13th at Moose Hill. There are both secretary and treasurer board positions available for the next school year. And the next PTA meeting will be on Thursday, April 6th at 6 p.m. In person and virtual, and babysitting will be available.
Thank you. Sarah, all set? And I have a quick update for Matthew Thornton. As I've updated over the last month and a half, they're building a outside pavilion for some outdoor class time, and that construction will begin the end of this week, and hope to have it framed up during school vacation week for when the kids come back and be able to use it for the better part of May and June to the end of school. So they're pretty excited. All right, thank you very much, and we'll move into deliberations for the third reading to amend policy GCQAB, tutoring for pay.
Based on last time's conversation, we put one new line in there just to make it absolutely crystal clear that tutoring for pay would not happen during the school day, and that's the only difference between the second and third reading.
Yep. Any questions from the board? Could I have a motion to approve the third reading to amend policy GCQAB, tutoring for pay?
So moved.
Motion by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you. 7.2, the second reading to amend policy JFCA, student dress code.
Yes, I'll have Jen and Crystal come up in a little bit, but they went back and did their due diligence as requested. They talked to the admins in all the buildings, they talked to the SROs, and all those groups are entirely comfortable with what we presented last time in terms of the hoodies not being an issue in the hallways. And I trust all those groups, so I will support them, but I'll let them kind of speak to it if they're ready.
Hi there. So we got to work the next morning, went right in. I had conversations with all of the admin and then the admin together on the topic of the hoods. We discussed it thoroughly, and they can certainly see the concern from your point of view, which is obviously completely understandable. I think we feel as a school that we have a really good grasp on our students, and that we, for the most part, know who they are, can identify them very easily, especially with so many of us on the admin team. And we really wanted to make sure that when we were working on this new dress code, that we were meeting the kids halfway, and that they, based on all of the information we've gathered through social emotional learning and trying to meet kids where they're at, that we were, giving them a little bit of who they were so they could be that way in the hallway. But then when they were in the academic setting, we were making sure we were holding the standard of, our biggest thing is AirPods in the ears. And we want them to pay attention in class. And so that's kind of why we wrote it up that way. But after speaking with everybody, we got the same confirmation that we had prior to presenting the policy. So I'll let Jen talk about it.
So I went back to the middle school and I made an appointment with William, and I met with all of the administrative team at the middle school, and they kind of echoed what the high school said. They feel comfortable that they can identify the student if there's a problem. They also rely on us as teachers. If they can't identify the student, one of us definitely can in that hallway. We know our students, who they are if we need to. We also felt, especially at the middle school, we have some kids who really kind of use their hood or their sweatshirt as a sensory. They sometimes just need kind of block things out in the hallway. The hallways at the middle school can be very chaotic, so to get from one place to another. So some kids use it for that, and so it's just giving that piece of comfort. But I also talked to the SRO at the middle school, and he said that he didn't have any safety concerns about it. So.
Great, thank you. Bring it back to the board. Sarah?
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you for going back and checking. I appreciate it. For some of those kids that you mentioned about sensory, have exceptions been already made for those students to wear hoods in certain classrooms, or?
I think at times there is, depending on the student and depending on the teacher. Obviously, I think, especially in our situation, we have some in like science labs, their exception can't be made just for safety. But I think depending on what's going on in the classroom, those kids, if they need that exception, then they can work with the teacher to figure that out. Yeah.
And I would say up with us, I stood out in the foyer while all 1,400 kids were walking through the halls and counted the amount of kids who had hoods on. And I think the first time it was 6 kids. The next passing period it was 8. And so Jason and I stood out there quite a bit just to watch, kind of get a grasp on how many kids we were really talking about. But when you walk into a classroom, we don't see a ton of hoods. They typically automatically take them off. I think this was more for, we wanted to really give support to the staff so that if there was some sort of, disagreement with the students, they had a policy to go back to say, the policy says in our academic setting, you can't be wearing your hood. And so that's why we kind of designated the hoods versus the hats in how we were addressing them, because hoods have become such a part of these kids' culture and how they operate. But our teachers are pretty supportive of whatever our kids need.
So you said some kids are already wearing hoods, you said in the hallways?
Yeah, oh yeah, they wear them in the hallway now. So now we're trying to kind of, that happened after COVID. And, before it. But it's definitely a, when we talk about like the new trends in student attire, hoods are definitely one of them.
No, we don't have a hard time at the middle school. We ask them to take them off. They have no issue taking them off. We don't have a ton that are wearing them right now. I do think if we move forward with the policy as written, are we going to see a lot more in September because they can? Sure, because it's something new they can do. And then I think it'll kind of work its way out to where the trend will fall. But I've never had a kid that I've asked to take it off that gives me a hard time about it or is disrespectful.
Well, I'd hope, because right now in the policy it says no hoods, correct? So I would assume that's a lot of asking the kids to take your hoods off all the time. Yeah, until they understand. I do still have some concerns about the safety aspect of this. And in one way, if we were going to allow hoods, I would feel more comfortable of it being in the classroom where a teacher knows that student and knows them and is able to identify them in the classroom and where they are, rather than a group of 1,400 kids walking around with hoods on and being harder to identify an intruder or anything in that nature. So I know you said you had concerns about in the classroom being with AirPods or which we all do, but I still have some concerns that anything that could pose a potential safety threat or anything. I just have concerns about wearing hoods in general in the school, because I feel like we're being flexible with allowing hats and hoodies and beanies and stuff like that. I feel like we're kind of meeting them halfway with that, but that's just my personal, but I thank you for looking into it, appreciate it.
I would just say, in my observations, I think the students just stylistically don't differentiate necessarily between their hat and their hood. Their sweatshirt's on, and they throw the hood up. But again, the ones we've interacted with, all respectful. Again, we can identify them. They listen and respond when we do talk to them. There's also additional means to identify our students with, the student IDs that they have, the picture, their school picture with their name on it as well. So just another a visible item that administration or teachers can detect to just ensure that obviously these are all our students that are in our hallways. All set, Sarah?
Yep.
Amanda, anything? Kevin? You're good. All right. I'll ask for a motion to move policy JFCA student dress code to a third reading.
So moved.
Was that Amanda? Motion by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.3, second reading to amend policy JFCA-R, student dress code.
It's just, if you remember, the regulation's more detailed.
Yep.
So it just goes along with the policy.
Nothing further.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll ask for a motion for the second reading, to move to a third reading to amend policy JFCA-R, student dress code.
So moved.
Motion by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Okay, 7.4. Thank you for everybody sending in their ideas and thoughts on the liaison report, and tried to fill it in the best I could, and just wondering if anyone here has any questions or changes that you may want to do, or if everybody is good, willing to do anything. It was tough because a lot of people had a lot of the same subject matters, but I tried to even it up in each column on the first and the secondary. Are we good?
Looks good.
Good to me.
All right. If I could have a motion to approve the liaison assignments for 23-24.
So moved.
So motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-0. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Superintendent report, 8.1, options for excellent temporary classroom at North School.
Yep, so in your board packet, there's a short memo that kind of summarizes the homework we did. If you remember, the excellent temporary classroom kind of hung in the balance about which budget was approved. With the budget being approved, we can afford it. So Lisa and Alan have done an excellent job kind of identifying, I think, the right temporary classroom and kind of working with Paul to figure that out as well. So we think we found it. It's a little bit bigger than normal, and I think we're doing that on purpose because if you go to the back end of North School, you'll notice a lot of music stuff in the hallways. North School is our second most stressed school in terms of space, so I think if we're able to store some of the music stuff in the temporary classroom as well, that'll be a good benefit. So really what we're bringing to the school board tonight is how we pay for it. There's outright buying, which would be the cheapest in the long term. There's leasing to own, which is also a good option, or just leasing. And I think what we found is, if you look at the time frame of all this, and we'll get into this with the master planning discussion, is most likely if enrollment holds where it is, this temporary classroom will be at North School for quite some time. If we do lease it long-term, that'll become the most expensive option, and I think we don't want to be in a place where we're constantly renewing it and companies are increasing the price on us. So I'll kind of turn it over to Lisa and Alan to add a few more details, and we'll see what questions the board has. Oh, and probably one last thing I will say is, this temporary classroom, if we figure this out this month, April, it'll be ready for the school year. So I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind too.
I think when we started looking into the details of the unit, the correct unit to put at North School, we had an opportunity cross our paths to buy a unit that was 2 years old, less than 2 years old, and it was a little bit bigger than we probably would have initially been looking at. This had benefits for 2 reasons. One, the extra space could certainly be utilized by North School, and it also came at a significant cost savings to the district by buying this unit that was 2 years old. I think at this point, as Dan had mentioned, we have 3 options to buy outright. If we were to go that path, we could use some surplus from this year, which we are projecting to have, and then use the fiscal '24 budget dollars that was voted on in that budget, and we could buy it outright. That's one option. Or we could lease to purchase, which would mean we would have annual payments on the unit. We would finance it probably 6 or 7 years. That would also be a great option, because in the end we would own it, and depending on how long we had this unit, it would pay for itself probably in the course of less than 7 years. So we think that owning it is definitely worth it. If we were to just do an outright leasing from the vendor, we could be in that situation of paying that annual payment indefinitely until we were able to make some sort of movement for a project at North School. So knowing the facility plan is in place, knowing that we have a lot of work to do on prioritizing projects, I really think in reality that we could comfortably say that North School will not happen within 7 years, and we would pay for this unit outright by doing it one of the other ways. Anything you want to add about the unit, or?
I think the unit that we looked at, we are going to do a small modification. It was originally designed as a double unit where you had 2 separate classroom areas. We're going to eliminate those center walls and give Paul or his staff a more open concept. And there'll be a small supporting wall in the center, basically giving him, I think, all the space you need for between music and chorus, that type of thing, plenty of storage space. And the unit itself looks like it's in absolutely great condition.
Great. Questions? Kevin?
I'm curious if we do the purchase option, and I literally know nothing about portable classrooms, so bear with me on this. Does it hold its value? Is it something that 10, 7, 8 years from now, obviously wouldn't be selling back at the same price, wouldn't be able to sell at the same price, but would be able to refurbish it and then sell it down the road? Should we, get to the point of not needing it anymore? Or is that something that they, after 5 years, they fall off the cliff and pretty much you can't use them anymore for resale value?
No, actually, the way these units are designed, they have a life expectancy between 30 to 50 years as long as they're well maintained. They're all built to IBC codes, which is the International Building Codes. They're actually not built too much different now than homes are.
Thank you.
So I think, Kevin, when that time came, that we wouldn't be utilizing this unit, I think we could, do an analysis on the district, whether we would sell it outright to somebody if we could find a buyer, or if there would be some other need in the district to utilize the unit. But I think it would be a good investment, and we would have options at that time.
Anyone else? All set, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me just hit on a couple of things. I agree not have to pay some finance charges to finance it, but to take money out of the surplus this year when we're into April, and I know we have some other costs that we may be able to use some of the surplus for the education purposes, so I would kind of shy away from there. Plus, I believe when we went to the voters, we asked for $70,000 in the budget to get a temporary classroom and set it up and fit it up, so I'd hate to go and spend any additional money if all possible. And so the second option of a 7-year lease purchase with a 5% interest rate is fair, and it keeps us in the realm of underneath what the voters approved on that. So
Can I just make one comment. 5% interest was budgeted. It will be the interest rate when we do finance. And I did learn today, speaking to the finance company, that buying a used unit, the interest rate would be a little bit higher than that, probably at 6.5%.
Okay.
But just, I wanted to be clear about that.
Okay. But it still puts us under the budget that we put together
Yes.
back in the fall that the voters approved.
Yes.
And you look at the value on a 30 to 50 year, I wish something like this had been done, with the Moose Hill trailers where that was a straight out lease with no option to buy, because we're going to be we're into another lease with them until we figure out the logistics of that. So I think this is a smart way to do it with a lease purchase. With a 30-year plus. I requested the specifications on the 2 trailers proposed that was sent to us. I just have some concerns on the roof. One of them has a metal roof and the other one has a rubber roof. And I'm concerned with the metal roof with heavy rain being next to classrooms. I believe there's 1 or 2 classrooms on that side of the building where this was proposed to go. And I'm concerned about if that's for the band room and that, if it will, take away from what they're doing in the building. So I'd just like a little more information on that roof system on this. So I thank you for sending me the specifications late today, Lisa, I appreciate it. So I just tried to look through it to compare, the durability, because not always the cheapest or lower price is the best quality, but this had some better features than the other one, and the other one had some, but I did pick up on the roof. And what made me think of it was the pavilion at the Matthew Thornton. We were looking at a metal roof for that with the PTA and with the classrooms right there. The teachers were concerned about a heavy rain or weather hitting this metal roof and taking away from the class time and that. And I don't know if you've ever been in a building with a metal roof or a trailer. It can be pretty loud, so I'm not sure how this is built on the roof. I didn't get a chance to really go through the full specs, so that's something I would look into. And that, just to make sure which way to go. And would it be okay if we voted on this on the 18th? Does that still give us time? It's just so you guys can compare these specs and make sure it's going to be suitable for the area it's going, and look into that roof system.
Yep.
I mean, you can do a rubber roof or whatever. It may just be something to look into. That may be a slightly additional cost to coat it and take that away, but that's my thoughts on that, not getting a chance to really review the full specifications of both units.
Yeah, no, I think if you look at the timeline, with this specific temporary classroom, if there's any other questions from the board, funnel it to us. Because if we make a decision on the 18th, we're set for the school year.
Okay.
Alan, if we go a different route and we choose a brand-new one after April 18th, do you think we'll be ready for the school year?
Probably not. The
Okay.
wait time on a brand-new unit, once it's been spec'd out and prepaid for, or at least partially paid for, is probably 18 to 20 months currently. Weeks, sorry.
Okay, so we'll look into the roof and
Yeah.
and whatever the school board has on the specifications.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not the one to buy. I just want to make sure we're set and it does what we need to do. And it looks like it's well-built, but I just want to cover all those areas. And that way, when we vote on it, everything is discussed. And any other questions the board members have, we got a couple of weeks to really throw it out there. And the other 5th board member will be here as well. So if there's any questions, you'll have the full input. So appreciate all the information. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, 8.2, parameters for special education study.
Yep, so Kim and I, we digested, I believe last month, we kind of talked about, some of the parameters, and, last time was more of a brainstorming from the school board, some of the things to look at. So we digested all that, and I think the way we tried to differentiate is, where could we really stand to gain from outside perspective? So there were 3 areas where we thought we can gain. So Kim was part of a study 2 years ago? Last year, where a bunch of public school districts kind of compared their staffing in special education. And, live free or die, everyone's in different places and how we kind of use people. So I thought that was a good example where we could choose to benefit from another outside group kind of looking at our model and kind of comparing us to others, comparing us outside of New Hampshire if that's possible, and kind of seeing it. So people just use different staff in different areas in different ways. So I thought, we both thought that would be a good area to look at. I'll let Kim talk a little bit more about inclusion, but I think we always want to be finding ways for students with special needs to be included in the general ed classroom. So I think that's one big thing she's been thinking about, and...
So looking at developing our department goal for next year, this is the time we do that. We also know that one of the concerns, rightly so, of the community, and I share that concern, is the state testing and how well our children with IEPs do on that one measurement, and in general, their overall progress on grade level curriculum. So we're looking into, work of John Hattie and other people who are leaders in their field around specially designed instruction in the classroom and universal design. Next year is really just baby steps into a broader conversation, but looking at an outside perspective on how we can help support more of our children in the regular ed classroom and do inclusion to fidelity so that they get maximum benefit out of that.
So we thought that would be a good area for outside perspective. And the third area is adult support model. So where we use paraprofessionals in our district, it's very varied. And I think, we would love to get some outside perspective on the best ways to use them in the right way. I don't know if you want to add anything more in there, or that's enough?
I think that's good.
Okay, good. And then, some other areas I brought up last time that we could just share soon, and we can kind of orchestrate that over the spring and summer and fall, however the school board wants to do it. Compliance came up last time. The DOE yearly does compliance on us, so we can kind of share how we're doing. Achievement results, Kim already brought that up. In terms of standardized testing, all those systems are built to kind of track how general education students are doing, how students with IEPs are doing, so we can kind of share some of that. It's possible that we could also do some of that work with some of our internal assessments, like iReady and things, but we haven't necessarily set up our systems like that to do that, but we could. And then, in general, there was a desire to see how our programs work. We have a lot of programs. We service a lot of needs, and I think, Kim would welcome the school board joining her for a day, for many days, for many weeks, however we want to do it, or members of the public to kind of see some of our self-contained settings, some of our more inclusionary settings, and everywhere in between. So those three things I think we can do without outside help, but, we're just trying to narrow the scope, because I think we left last time being like, this could be a 5-year study if we don't really focus it well.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Do we have data to support for our kids in programs master targets as a whole group outcome data in terms of on average how many targets are mastered and how many kids with individualized programming are making progress trending upward, and same for obviously challenging behaviors trending downward and things like that? And do you think that would be an area where we could use an objective perspective?
For our ABA-based programs, our autism self-contained programs, that data is fairly easily put together because we use either, depending on what grade level you're at, Catalyst or ACEs to track all of their IEP goals. So that is there. For all of the other programs, it is based on their trimester and end-of-year IEP progress reporting. We'd have to put something together. The raw data is there. We don't have a mechanism that it's quickly put together.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
All set? Kevin? Okay. All right, let me just jump in here. Conversation started on this back in the fall. Myself, Kevin, and Dan, we had a conversation about it, and that's what got it going, and said Kim had welcomed it, and me being a school board member, I don't know much about special education. There's a lot to it, and I want to know about it. And I know a lot of board members that come on to a school board have really not a lot of knowledge of how our programs run, what we offer on the day-to-day. So when folks come to us with questions and concerns, how do we react? So as you've seen over the years, we've put a lot of plans in place because that's what I like to do with facilities and that. And just to hit on compliance, I just had a question. Is my understanding that the DOE picks a few schools each year?
No, no longer. We actually got our district data profile today.
Okay.
And we met requirements in all of the compliance areas.
Okay, so they do it yearly now?
They do it annually for
Every school
every
district?
district.
Wow.
They changed
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Some of the compliance areas were every district forever.
Yep.
But last year, they changed the monitoring process completely and had a massive overhaul.
Okay.
Is that a document that's on their website?
It is not broken down to that level of specificity
Got it.
for each district.
Okay.
All right, that was one question I had because I was looking through for readings and compliance, and I didn't see a lot of school districts online and that all the way back for 10, 12 years, so I was just curious. What I did pull, and I pulled this out some time ago and I just brought it back out again, and this was one of the reasons as far as having a plan for the special education program. And I'm just going to read it. It's just over a page and a half long, but this is what myself as a board member would like to see in place for Londonderry School District, because I think it'll help us overall. I think it'll give us a strategic plan, as it calls out in here, for our special education program. It'll give us documents and reports to help future board members and help us learn it where we don't have all the time in the day to go in and learn each program, but I'm still willing to do that, and I am going to take you up on that offer this year. But I'm just going to read this. This is a school district that took place in New York, and it's a company out of Boston area that does called PCG, and they're a public consulting group. So the district partnered with Public Consulting Group to embark on an external review of the special education department, including its current program offerings, effectiveness of individualized services, continuum of services, monitoring and compliance, related professional development, consistency and articulation between schools, resources, and parent relations. PCG first engaged in reviewing information from the Offices of Special Education, Curriculum and Instruction, Business, Human Resources, and from our Data Management Center. Then 5 focus groups were held with parents, and parents also shared information via a survey and by email. In addition, educators in the district participated in IEP file review teams, classroom observations, and survey responses. Interviews have also been conducted with administrators and district leaders. PCG presented their findings to the Board of Education of this district 4 months later. The results of the review will be utilized by the district's leadership team to develop a strategic plan for special education with a focus on how the district can more effectively organize its structures, systems, and process to better support the delivery of service to students with disabilities. And that's what got me going some time ago, a really defined program that we have documented. And would that help us throughout the district and put something into, the Londonderry way we do things with our regular strategic plan on the special education side?
It's actually funny you mentioned the Public Consulting Group, because, Kim's been doing a great job behind the scenes trying to find the right group to work with us. And one thing I mentioned to her a couple weeks ago was like, well, I know the Public Consulting Group does work like this, but I wonder if we're just too small of a client, because I knew them earlier in my career, and I'm sure they like to work for we're big for New Hampshire standards, but a 4,000 kid school district, someone like them, I don't know if we'd be interested, but it was funny, we were talking about them
We
a couple
were.
weeks ago, because they could provide that full service of what we're looking for. It just depends if our size and what we can afford is even in interest of them.
This
Yeah.
district had eight schools, we have
Okay.
6. So
Okay,
I
good.
think-
That's good to hear.
And them being
Yeah.
in Boston
Yeah.
area,
Yep.
it may be advantageous for them to take a district
Sure.
close in that. So that's something,
Yeah.
why I brought it up in the fall,
Mhm.
is I like to be able to answer and have the information that I can read and look through, and then experience it by sitting with you and going through some of these classes over the spring.
Sure.
And that to be more educated, to make, the right decisions in that when it comes to anything in that class, So that's what I seen, and I just wanted to share that with my board members tonight and see if if that interests the board to go that route and to have all this information and look at what we do and maybe what we can do better. And hopefully, Kim, it'll help you and your staff, and you may need more stuff from us. It may say, hey, we really need to do this to change things. And that's what we're all about, is the best education for these kids. So, I'd like to hear if anybody's got anything to add to that, or if you think that's the route.
I'd definitely like to find out if that is something that would be available through them, and if it's what the cost behind it would be, so we can have that information in hand for sure.
Yeah, and I would also want to see a list of exactly what they're looking at. I think an objective perspective could be really good, and making sure our systems align across buildings. And I think it's not to point out anything that anyone's not doing, but just to have that perspective in terms of goal setting for the next couple of years, in terms of how can we change for the better. I think that'd be important.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, anything?
No, you said you found a few groups that could potentially do this?
So after our last board meeting, I think Kevin's the one that mentioned asking the Department of Ed, so I did follow up. The only name that they recommended was West Ed, which is another national group. I did find a company out of Needham, I want to say Needham, one of the N cities in Mass, that did a really impressive comprehensive study of the Amesbury School District. And then in terms of in-state, a lot of the organizations, like the one I participated in, also, do it for a fee. One of just sort of my concerns, and I think PCG would have this background, is IDEA is implemented very differently in New Hampshire than the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And the role that the DOE plays in New Hampshire is also vastly different. So being able to take that into account.
So did you find, or do we know of any in-state or no?
There's no in-state that compares to, there's no independent third party in-state that anyone, I have asked the Department of Ed, the New Hampshire School Administrators Association, my Special Ed Administrators Association, none of them knew of an in-state third party.
So if you look at two names that came up tonight, West Ed is a known mover and shaker in the education world. The Public Consulting Group is a vast group that does public everything, with education just being one part of it. So those are two pretty big and pretty sophisticated organizations that could potentially do this work.
So would the board be okay if they brought information to the next meeting and some cost if they're able to do it, so we could look at this?
Yeah.
Might take a little more time, but we'll try, yes.
Okay. We good? Good, thank you.
If you could share that document with Kim and I, that'd be great
Oh, sure.
too. Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yep, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. All right, 8.3, master planning recap.
This is not an in-depth conversation, just reminder of where we at. I think the last time we looked at this was in November. Very thankful for the Londonderry community, so we were successful in the infrastructure bond. So we're getting ahead of, our biggest heating and ventilation issues, and we're going to fix them before they break. We met with the Moose Hill the kindergarten committee last week. We're going to have another meeting on April 19th. I think by May, we can start talking about Moose Hill with the school board more clearly. Sandra and I did a lot of work this winter, did a lot of thinking about the actual needs of the building and the space. We were able to share that with the staff. We got the architects to come up with a potential new plan, and I followed up with them today. So I think Sandra and I are going to give them some feedback from the staff next week. So I think May, we're ready to talk about Moose Hill. And obviously, you know, in the first 5 years, the prior school board, I know Tim's not here tonight, but he'll be back next week. We had 3 areas to look at. Our infrastructure, which we did figure out, Moose Hill and the district office. So all that's back on the table, all that's back for the board to consider. And again, I think just to kind of recap the fall, I think what I really got out of this process is it's good to have a tentative plan. Every school board obviously has their input on what we do, but these things take really long time to figure out. So I'll go to like one of the next slides. This is something the architects put together where they kind of mapped out. Here's how 10 years could play out in terms of taking on the priorities the school board had in the fall. So, you know, there's a lot of planning that needs to happen. There's a lot of discussions that need to happen. So I think I'm just reminding the school board we're ready to do that. And if there's other things you want us to bring to the table, just let us know. We can talk about this again at April 18th. But I think the kindergarten committee will be ready to talk again on May 9th, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'm just kind of seeing where the school board's at, or if there's other things you've been thinking about since the last time we talked about this.
Any questions? Thank you for the update, Dan.
Okay.
Look forward to it on the 18th.
Okay.
8.4, a update on safety upgrades.
Yes, so Lisa and I do something very quick and verbal. You know, thank you, Bob, for the moment of silence. I think what we see internally is every time another incident happens, everyone gets worried. So I think we just want to reiterate how safe our schools are. And there's 2 reasons why I know that. One is I look at the Emergency Operations Committee. That is a group that has standardized all of our practices over our buildings for many years. And within that group are our school resources officers. So watching how well our Emergency Operations Committee works with our school resource officers is one of the reasons why I think I can comfortably say we are a very safe school district. And that group led us to Alice. Alice has been a real turning point for us. You know, we just had our second Alice drill a couple weeks ago. You know, our practices are so much stronger. You know, we're in a really good place. And what Lisa's going to do is kind of go over some of the infrastructure upgrades. So, you know, thanks to the voters last year, the grant we got over the summer, and the voters again this year, there are more things we are putting in our buildings to make them safer. So I'll let Lisa kind of summarize that again and go over those timelines.
Okay, thanks, Dan. As Dan said, we really have 3 major funding sources for security upgrades. I thought it was a good time to update the public and the community on where these all stood. The current year, and also thank the public for supporting the 2 articles, one in the current budget and one for the budget next year for these upgrades. What we had budgeted for this current year, fiscal year 23, we did get a $350,000 approval from the community. And what we had planned for that was an upgrade on our radio communications and also the emergency alert buttons. We did experience some significant supply chain issues on the buttons, but I am happy to report that those are all in. We have installed them at Moose Hill. Right now, the buttons are there. They're not operational, but the hardware is there. And all of the other schools will be installed in the summer of 23. So those will all be in and working at the end of the summer before school begins. Then the second funding source was the SAFE grant, and we did get $560,000 there. And that grant funded mostly the access controls on the doors, which means you have to have a pass to get in, so exterior doors are secured that way. And the interior door locks. We put in for, if there were an emergency and the emergency alert button were triggered, the doors would automatically lock. So it takes a human factor out of that. That was a significant portion of that funding. And We needed some additional funds to complete that, which brings me to the article that was just approved last month for $350,000. That will allow us to complete the interior door locks at all schools. We are currently putting some quotes together with some technical specs on that. We will be bidding that out, so we'll report back to the board when we have more information on who would be doing that and scheduling that out. The access controls are all bid out. We do have prices on all of that. We are scheduling, we have 2 schools, North School and Middle School, that is right now scheduled for August. And we're looking to get the vendor to schedule out the rest for the access controls. But the good news there is that those can be done when school is in session, probably after school. So we don't have, unlike the panic buttons where it really needs to be done in the summer or during school breaks, that project can be completed during school, while school's in session, probably after school and off hours. So again, I wanted to thank the community for their really support of all of the 2 articles and the state funding of the grant. It's allowing us to make our schools as safe as they can be.
Thank you, Lisa. And we did receive, I shared with you, Dan, some concerns of safety, of course, of what happened just
Sure.
recent. And maybe every other meeting, we could just do a quick update on any safety changes, anything that's going on in the buildings, just to reinforce to our community and our moms and dads out there that, you know, this is what's happened in the last month or this and that, just a safety update regarding, you know, the doors or that, just so people know that, you know, a report from the SRO, whatever, things are going well in the buildings and that. I think it just gives some peace to the parents as well.
Yep.
If we
Work
can
on
do
that.
something like that, that would be great. Anything else? All set? All right. Like to have a motion to go into non-public session requested under RSA 91A:3, Section 2, B, C, and I.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Amanda. Roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Gray.
Aye, Kevin Gray.
Aye, Bob Slater.
Hi, Sarah Laughlin.
I, Amanda Butcher.
Thank you very much. Have a good night and happy